Hi, my name is Mark Constantine, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the president and CEO of RMHF. And today marks an important day in the evolution of our foundation and our relationship with each of you on our call and Zoom today. Before I start and turn it over to the amazing RMHF team, I want to pause and on behalf of the trustees and team at RMHF, thank each and every one of you for the extraordinary work and courage and commitment you have demonstrated during this most complex and challenging time. We are deeply humbled and inspired by all of you, and we are grateful and honored to be in relationship with you. So I just wanted to pause and say thank you before we go to a more technical part of our conversation today. Over the last almost 6 years now, the foundation's trustees and team have been on a very intentional learning and action journey around health and racial equity. And last week, we released the strategic framework that reflects our trustees' 5-year commitment to our community. Today, we're going to walk through it, and the amazing team at RMHF is going to answer some of the questions and anticipate some of the questions that you as partners might have. The agenda is pretty straightforward. You'll hear from Gladys Washington, Michael Smith, Albert Walker, Kendra Jones, Lisa Bender. And we will have time at the end to answer any questions that you might have. So we invite you to submit your questions in the chat space, and we will make sure to answer any of all of those before our conversation today ends. RMHF is a really trustee-driven and directed organization, and we are grateful to be led by a majority BIPOC board in Richmond, Virginia. We have 13 extraordinary trustees who over the past 6 years have leaned in, learned together, challenged our own implicit and explicit assumptions, and begun to deepen our work around health and racial equity. I just want to give a shout out to the trustees who make all of our work possible and who provide the courage and vision we as a foundation team need to pursue our agenda. Our equity journey is on our website. I invite and encourage anyone who wants to review it and to ask us any questions about our own journey. Like all racial and equity journeys, we are just in a process. We have a lot to learn. We have practices and policies to change, and we have so much to gain by being in deeper relationship with you all. Work always starts internal before it can have any authenticity and integrity externally. Since 2016, our trustees and team have been working with a dynamic, very ethical group of leaders who have challenged us, who have brought us into new courage, into new wisdom. And I just want to give a nod and a shout out to each of these folks and many others, most of you from our community, who have given us conviction and commitment to continue on this journey together. Like any shop, it starts at the top. And we are grateful and benefit from extraordinary trustees, as I mentioned earlier. Particular shout out to Reggie Gordon, Dr. Vanessa Walker-Harris, and Dr. Bill Nelson, who at critical moments in the foundation's journey held space for deep conversations around health and racial equity, and who allowed trustees and team together to grapple with the painful realities of our region around structural racism and inequality, and who encouraged and motivated and challenged our team to live deeply into our commitments. Thanks also to the members of our 2017 and 2019 Equity and Health Fellowship programs. The 2017 class gave us 4 priority areas that we have tried to hold firm to, that we have held ourselves accountable to. Our 2019 fellows have really pushed us to think more explicitly about the intersections of the built environment, the social determinants of health, and racial equity. And as a body, our trustees and team have tried to hold ourselves accountable to our fellows. So each year we have an equity scorecard that we internally monitor ourselves on. And then in 2020, at the end of the year, with the first class of equity and health fellows, met with them and reported how we have tried to move ahead on the 4 recommendations and where we have deep work to do to continue in their aspirations for us as a foundation. Defining health equity has been central to the work that we do. Our definition is up here for all of you. It's on our website. I think what our trustees and team were really clear about doing was make sure that in our health equity definition, we root poverty and discrimination. And over the next several years, we'll be looking more explicitly about questions of power and power building as we are trying to sort of grow into the foundation we aspire to be. On the racial equity front, we've been working explicitly on racial equity since 2016, 2017. This new phase of our journey will require even deeper internal and external work. It's a work in progress for us as a team and as a body of trustees, to be explicit. And we are gaining sort of early glimpse into what it might mean for us in partnership with Race Forward. I'm going to pause here and let folks on the webinar read this slide. We are at a most pivotal moment in our region's history, in the Commonwealth's history, and in our history as a country. And if there's ever a time to lean more deeply into our commitment around racial equity, it is now. And so our trustees have explicitly called out 5 years for this body of work. We recognize that it's 50, 100 years of work, but we as a foundation are not going to yank the plug and in 2 years say, what we said in 2022 doesn't hold true. We are deeply committed, and we are pursuing this with intentionality and with humility over the next 5 years. And we hope that this 5-year process makes your life as partners easier and makes the relationship between the foundation and each of you stronger. In the past, we've talked about our commitment to foster health equity through a racial and ethnic lens. We are much more explicit in 2022 about talking about our commitment to health and racial equity, recognizing that they are inextricably linked and we can have neither without both. In 2019, we gave a preview of where we are today in 2022. We are on an evolutionary journey together. We've tried to live into all of the promises we made in 2019. No one's complaining about multi-year general operating support. No one's complained about sort of getting rid of written closeout reports. And we're hopeful that the steps that we're about to outline will make your lives even stronger. We as a foundation understand that our region is only going to realize health and racial equity and have a true health and racial equity movement. We need strong organizations, we need sustained leaders, and we need people in relationship with each other across sectors and across organizations. And we as a foundation don't want to get in your way and make your life any harder because you're doing the work that matters. And finally, today, our focus is on multi-year general operating support. In later webinars and Zooms, we will talk about our capacity building work around our collaborative investments, but today the focus really is on multi-year general operating support. It represents the first phase as we build out our new strategic framework. And here's our remarkable team. Every team member makes extraordinary contributions to RMHF. Every team member is deeply committed to health and racial equity. And it's an honor and pleasure for me every day to learn with this extraordinary group of leaders. So I want to pause and give a shout out to Gladys Washington, Michael Smith, Albert Walker, Gay Ryan, Stacy Buchanan, Kendra Jones, and Lisa Bender. And now I have the pleasure and honor of shifting the conversation to my wise guide and mentor, Gladys Krieger Washington.
Thank you so much, Mark. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today and believing that we have something valuable to say about our approach and our move forward. As you all know, RMHF has had programmatic focus around these things: access to healthcare, HEAL, COVID response, housing and built environment, HEARTS, capacity building, and Black and Brown-led grassroots cohorts. We are moving from that programmatic focus to general operating support, where we will fund organizations that are mission aligned, and every single organization comes through the front door. Next slide. Thank you. Why this shift matters. I'm sure that all of you on this call know that general operating support is good money, right? The other advantages to it is that it provides you all with flexible funding. RMHF is interested in supporting the work that you, your organization, your boards, your constituents believe is most critical for addressing community opportunities and challenges. We also want to be able to be helpful to you around overhead support and infrastructure development, because program and programmatic grants and project grants don't cover those costs. And we want you to be able to build your internal capacity for long-term sustainability. So our grant making framework moving forward. As Mark said, we're going to concentrate today on multi-year general operating support. Capacity building and opportunity investments will come along later in the year in July. Foundation directed collaborative investments are those that are driven internally by the foundation and in collaboration with other foundations. RMHF will continue to use program related investments and impact investing as a way to support the work moving forward. Now I'll turn it over to Michael to talk about what it means to be mission aligned.
Thank you, Gladys. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Smith. I am the Program and Strategy Officer at RMHF. And today I will focus on our slide discussing mission alignment. And as you see in the bold language, we have a mission at the foundation to foster an equitable and healthy Richmond region. And so what do we mean when we talk about being a mission aligned with you and your organization? And it's these three points, guidelines for assessing mission alignment that I want to discuss today. So advances health and racial equity. Many of you on this call, we have been in deep relationship over the past 6 years or so as the foundation has pivoted towards discussing health and racial equity. And you all have taught us a lot. You've taught us that we need to think differently around our interpretations of equity. We've thought about different populations in Richmond that are experiencing inequities that we might not have known about more discreetly at the foundation. And we want to further understand that in partnership with you all. But we want to understand how your mission as an organization speaks to this. And so no longer will we be focusing necessarily on programs. We want to think about your organization. And that's exciting for us. We hope it's exciting for you. Embodies an understanding of the social determinants of health. We are a health equity organization. And so we want to know all the social determinants that we might not even be aware of. So how is access to education impacting health? How is access to power impacting health? Access to transit? We want to know that, and we know that you all also want to give us that feedback and also want to speak to that as well. Impacts those most affected by inequity. So as I mentioned, we want to know the populations that you all are engaging, and we want to know how they are being impacted. We don't want to be speaking as at a deficit. We want to see what are the assets that these populations have and how can addressing their inequities speak to their assets. And you'll see at the bottom, in addition, we want to give priority to organizations where this internal work is occurring. And Mark gave a shout out to our board and our trustees. And I want to say that our trustees have been leading this work. It's been an honor and a privilege to work in an organization where trustees are actually driving this. And we want to understand if that's happening in your organization as well. And so please feel free to speak to that. And we're excited to understand how you all are engaging on that journey. And we'll go to the next slide, I believe, and talk about the social determinants. So here's a visualization of what we at the foundation see as social determinants of health. As I mentioned, education and access to quality education. That's important in our region and in most regions. And so we want to understand how that's impacting health. Obviously, since the founding of RMHF, our bread and butter has been access to care. And so we want to continue to understand how that's addressing health equity. Neighborhood and built environment. You all might have known me as my title is the Director for Built Environment. And I've had plenty of conversations with some of you where you're not necessarily advancing housing stability, but you're doing something along the edges. And it was never a clean fit. And we want to get away from that. And we want to make sure that your organization sees that you do fit within this new strategic direction. Social and community context, where we're trying to understand engagement, access to power. How does that show up in our advancing of health equity and economic stability? So health and wealth. And so those social determinants of health, you can find this on our strategic plan. We link to a document that gives a little more articulation to social determinants of health. So please check out our strategic plan when you have some time. And I'll pass the slide over to my colleague, Albert.
Thank you, Michael. Albert Walker. I am a program and strategy officer here at the foundation. And I just want to underscore a couple of words from Michael when he mentioned mission aligned. And so what that means is that there are folks that we have not historically have had relationships with, but they've been mission aligned with us. And you should know that health is more than just healthcare. And so if you're looking out for those most affected by inequities in communities, we want to know who you are. And so with this mission alignment, it really underscores another point that Mark made earlier, that we want to deepen our commitment to health and racial equity. And in that deepening, we are open. And so that's the first point you want to know, that our foundation is open. And so we're open to seeing new organizations. Over the last 2 years, we've learned that there are many organizations that are driving great work in our communities that we don't even have a relationship with. And so this is our opportunity to open our doors, to open the foundation, to at least get to know who these organizations are. And so how do we do that? And so we do this through this organizational profile. Really, the organizational profile for me, the way that I look at it, it's really a document. It's a 2-pager. It helps us to get to know you. So if you're a new organization, this is how we're going to get to know you. This is how we're going to figure out mission alignment. This is how we're going to figure out a track record. And so many of you have been doing it, and you've been doing it well, and we want to know you, and we want to meet you, and we want to meet you through this profile. So the profile is the way that we get to know you. And for organizations we already know in a project-based way, we want to know you differently in terms of your strategies and how you're thinking about your strategies. So the organizational profile is an important document, and it's a critical shift in the way that we're approaching our grant making. A quick word for new organizations who haven't applied to our grant making. In order to do this, you need to know that it takes about 2 days to get your credentials. So I just want to say that early. It takes about 2 days to get your credentials. So you might want to spend some time to get in there early. And the profile shouldn't take you that long to complete, but the credentialing process takes a little bit of a while. So I just want everybody to know that it might take a little bit longer. So Richmond's known for being, Johnny on the spot town. So I'm just giving you a little heads up about that. Okay, all right. So once you complete this organization profile, we're going to determine, an invitation to apply or a declination. So not everybody is going to be able to apply, and that's fine. But we will have a good look at you. And during the invitation to apply, then we have another round where we're going to be really looking at if everything is, as we say, tight and right. Don't worry, not everybody has it all tight and right, but we need to know it, and we need to know what's going on. We want to know, we want to be in a relationship with you. And so there are other opportunities that might happen. So it's not all about, it is about getting funding. There's also knowing about who doesn't get funded. And we want to know that too. And we want to understand that. And we want to work with our community. And then once you are able to apply, then we'll make a recommendation to our board of trustees, who makes the final decisions on all grants. And then if approved by our board, you have opportunity to receive a multi-year general operating support grant. And what we mean by multi-year is 2 years, 2 years of funding, multi-year, ranging between $20,000 to $100,000. Pro tip. Now, In terms of the general operating budget, we cannot fund more than 30% of your general operating budget. So you need to kind of have a sense of what that is as you seek your funding. And so thank you. And I'll pass it on to Kendra, who will say a little bit more about the timeline.
Thank you, Albert. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Kendra Jones. I'm the Special Projects Officer and Accountant here at the Foundation. And I want to make you aware of the timeline for our general operating funding opportunity. Again, every organization will come in through the same front door and go through the same process. You will need to complete the organizational profile, which will be live following this webinar today and accessible on our website. Your organization's profile needs to be submitted by February 17th by close of business. During the months of February and March, our team will review your answers to the questions on the profile, looking for that mission alignment, and either send you a link to move forward and apply for funding, or explain to you why your interest in applying has been declined at this time. The invitations or declinations will be sent to you no later than March 14th, and those who are invited to apply will need to submit their applications no later than April 11th by close of business. During the months of April and May, our team will review your submissions by going through our due diligence process and submit recommendations to our Board of Trustees for review. Board approval for funding will be finalized in May, and awards or declinations will be shared in early June. So now I'm going to give it to my colleague, Lisa Bender, who will share specifics around the process in our online grants management system. Lisa?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Bender, and I'm the Learning Officer and Grants Manager. So this is the landing page that allows access to our online grants management system. And the link is over on the left-hand side. And it's now, as mentioned earlier, on our website. And it's at the bottom of the homepage, I think, as well as each page that you go to. That's a button that says Grants Portal. And the profile will be activated later today, as Kendra said. All right, so this is where you would start if you want to complete an organizational profile. And I know a lot of you are already familiar with this page. So if you have an account already, you would just sign in and that'll take you to the portal. If you're a new organization, you'll need to create an account by clicking on the button at the bottom of the page that says create a new account now. So when you do that, it will take you to an eligibility quiz. And that just has two questions. The first one being, are you a nonprofit or a governmental entity? And we used to ask if you were a 501c3, but we've changed it so non-501c3 nonprofits can submit an organizational profile. And if invited to apply, they would need to get a fiscal sponsor. And then the second question just asked if you're in our geographic area, service area, or serve people in these areas. And then following the eligibility quiz, you'll be asked for contact information. And as Albert mentioned before, it takes 2 business days to get your login credentials. So please don't wait till the day or the day before the day of the submission deadline to create an account to get your credentials, because you might not get them in time. So when you sign into the system, it will take you to our application and grants management portal, where you'll be able to complete the organizational profile. And I don't have time to cover everything in the portal, so I highly recommend you read the instructions before beginning. I will point out a few things. So you'll need to click on the Apply for Grant Funding button to get to the organizational profile page, and that's in the upper right-hand corner. For those of you who have used our portal before, the location of the button is in a new place to make it more convenient to access. So you'll be able to save the information you enter without submitting it. Now, when you come back into the portal later, you'll need to click on Pending Request to complete it, and that's over on the left-hand side in the dashboard. If you click on the Apply for Funding button again, it will bring you to a new page and you won't see your saved draft. And then once you submit your profile, you should see a notification come up saying the information was successfully updated. And the request should go to submitted request in the dashboard. And you might have to refresh the page in order to see it move there right away. I know I need to do that on my computer. And also an email will go out, but it can take a while to get to your inbox. And it also depends on who you list as the primary contact. Please note that you don't have to complete or update the organization information page to submit the profile. This only needs to be done if you are invited to apply. Okay, so when you click on the apply for funding button, it will take you to the organizational profile page, and you'll complete the organization information and profile questions. For organizations in the system, if you need to change your address, for example, the yellow highlighted note tells you that it needs to be done in the organization information page. And then in order to bring up the profile questions, you'll need to select general operating support in the drop-down under grant type. So right now it's your only choice, but as mentioned earlier, we'll add capacity building and opportunity grants later in 2022. At the bottom, you can see the first question there. And my screenshot cut off all the other questions, but Gladys will show you all those questions. So I will turn it over to her now.
Thank you, Lisa. As Albert indicated earlier, we are interested in your organization, in supporting your organization with general operating support. So we ask a particular question at the beginning of the organizational profile that speaks directly to your organizational mission and its strategies. And sometimes when people have been asked and organizations have been asked to articulate their programmatic foci, we often miss the strategy. So we want to start at a different place with you. So the first question in the organizational profile is, what is your organization's mission and major strategies? Not programs or activities. Include the constituency, including but not limited to socioeconomic data and geography your organization serves. So we provided an illustration here that says that the mission is the biggest part of an organization's work. That's what you work for every day. Your strategies are how you get that done. And so this is where we want you to articulate your long-term and our overall goals. And this is directly related to mission. If you are encouraged to apply, then we will get into your program and activities through a process around outcomes. But for this particular organizational profile, this is the first question we would like for you to answer. Just know that we have 5 questions. That's it. This is a 2-page submission, as Albert indicated earlier. And we are looking forward to the answers that you give us, but we don't want you to spend a whole lot of time trying to create this organizational profile. So by way of example, next slide, please. I have just given an organization. Its mission was to support grassroots community organizations in the rural X seeking racial, economic, and environmental justice by providing financial resources, technical assistance, training, and access to systems of information and power. One of their strategies is to stabilize and strengthen community organizing groups. Their programs and activities are, some of them, is to develop community leaders in an intergenerational framework through a leadership development program that they have. This organization also provides funding and technical assistance to build organizational internal capacity, and they support peer-to-peer learning between and among community leaders from across communities. Next slide, please. So this is the organizational profile. As I said, it's 5 questions. The first I just went over. We asked you over the past 2 years, what's been the impact of your work on advancing health and racial equity? And over the past 3 years, how has your organization worked to integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion? Describe your organization's relationship/connections with people of color and or low wealth people. What roles do they play in governance and decision-making? The last question is, if your organization is engaged in a network or coalition, describe the nature of the network or coalition, including strategies, partners, and roles to advance health and racial equity. You can do that in 2 pages, trust me. The last item here is a request for other funding. And as you've heard from several of us today, our opportunity grants and capacity building support grants are not open yet, and they won't be until later in July. And so you just need to enter NA. Next slide. Lisa.
So, okay, what's ahead? So you'll log into our Flux grants management system and submit your organizational profile. And as Gladys just said, you'll enter NA for that 6th question because the funding won't be available till later in 2022. So if you're invited to apply, you'll be asked to attend another webinar session for that. And then again, we plan to launch the capacity building and opportunity investments later this year, and we will accept submissions on a rolling basis. And again, we'll have an information session similar to this one. Thank you.
So now we'd like to hear from you. Please enter your questions. We will try and answer those in our remaining time. Mark.
And don't be easy on us. I mean, we are here to be as transparent and as helpful to you as possible. A shout out to Stacy Buchanan, who is trying to field the really good questions as they come in.
Mark, maybe as we start out, there have been a couple of questions that have come through in the chat that might just be worth addressing live about the timing of the grant cycles opening and the amount of funding that would be available each year.
Absolutely. So I'm going to address the amount question and then turn the timing question over to Gladys. So when we say there's a $20,000 to $100,000 range for multi-year general operating, that's per year. So you're essentially over a 2-year period of time, you're eligible between $40,000 and $200,000. And so just to make that really clear, that's not 20 spread over 2 years at 10 and 10. So that's a question I think that is several folks have asked. Gladys, do you want to talk a little bit more about the timing questions?
Well, actually, Kendra.
Okay.
Yeah, so for the organizational profile, that will need to be completed and submitted by February 17th by close of business. And then if you are invited to apply, you need to submit that application no later than April 11th by close of business.
So there's another question. How about Michael for this question? For the network or coalition piece in the profile, if it's not a formal network, are you still interested in hearing about community partners that organizations work with on a regular basis?
Absolutely. I think if you fit within the defined page limit of the application, the organizational profile, I think that is what we're sticking to. But absolutely want to hear about the partners you're engaging with. We love to know the nature of that engagement, right? So do they know that you see them as a partner that you regularly engage with? Do they see you as a partner that they also are building a coalition or a network? That's what we want to know. Give us the full picture of that relationship. Absolutely.
So, Mark, the opportunities grant. So I know today we're just talking about general operating support. Can you give a little bit of forecasting about what's ahead of the different grant opportunities?
Sure, and I think Kendra and Gladys noted this, we will open up opportunity investments and capacity building in July. And so as a team, we are working our way through this new way of working around multi-year general operating support. And then under the leadership of Kendra Jones, our special project officer, we will be having the capacity building and opportunity investments go live then. Trying to be as transparent and as open as possible, we'll similarly do another webinar as to make the transition into a new opportunity as smooth and easy as possible.
Next question, if an organization gets one grant, does that prohibit them from applying applying for a capacity building grant as well?
Not at all.
Not at all.
In fact, we anticipate that as our program and strategy officers and special projects officer and learning officer learn more about our partners and what our partners need to advance health and racial equity, then opportunity investments and capacity building investments make even more sense.
Mhm.
There are a couple questions coming in about our service area. Who can speak to?
Our
Lisa
service area-
or Mark?
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'll
go
go
ahead.
quickly and then turn it over to Lisa. Our service area is articulated on the last page of the strategic framework. Full transparency, our priority is Richmond City, Henrico, Hanover, Goochland, Chesterfield, and Powhatan. It doesn't mean that areas outside of those are dissuaded from applying to the foundation, but they are a lower priority. We do make regional and in some cases national investments that align with our mission, but those are fewer and far between. And so I just want to set the stage with our partners.
So here's a really important question. We've been talking about this shift from programmatic support to general operating support, answering the question, not do you fund programs in these specific areas, but are you mission aligned? And so the question is, can you please clarify whether you're looking for specific proposals or ideas for new projects or interested in supporting the good work organizations are already doing, or perhaps both? Gladys, do you want to take that?
Oh, certainly. I think that we are interested in the good work that an organization is doing. That's why we're starting with the framing around the organization's mission and its goals. There are programs that are underneath that, but we are trying to support the good work that an organization is doing and putting that money into their budget so they can use it as they see fit. Of course, that's connected to programs, but we don't lead with the project. We don't lead with the program. We lead with the organization and the work it's doing. I hope that answers the question.
How about Albert for this next one? If an organization's brand new without 2 to 3 year impact to show, would it still be appropriate to put in an organizational profile?
Absolutely. Please, by all means. This is a new day. It's a new time. And it's not business as usual. And so we want to know who you are. Please apply.
Lisa, so 2 pages, is there a word count influx for this organizational profile?
Yeah, so it's actually not a word count, it's a character count that's set like at 6,000, which is supposed to be equivalent to about 2 pages.
Are grants open to nonprofits working with the faith communities?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, during the pandemic, one of the things that we as a team have understood is that the social safety net actually involves often mutual aid societies, faith communities taking care of their own. We also know that faith communities can be important and powerful players and work around community organizing. And so we as a foundation are open to learning more about that work and seriously reviewing those organizational profiles.
Can we be more specific about the distinction between operations support and capacity building? I know, again, those are forward-looking opportunities, but Mark, do you want to speak to that?
Actually, I'm going to turn it to Gladys to make the proper assignment.
Well, I'll take that one. Of course, with a general operating support, again, the organization decides how it wants to use that money. And sometimes in an organizational budget, you will spend money on capacity building efforts to support your infrastructure, to build it, to strengthen it, et cetera, et cetera. You can do that within the confines of that general support grant. If this is an extraordinary time, or there's something that's happening that you may need additional support for capacity building, that's what that particular, as Mark said, that particular capacity building program area, if you will, is designed for. I think I answered the question, did I?
Yeah, thanks, Gladys. Another one, if an organization is invited to apply, will we suggest the amount to request, or will that be up to the organization as part of their application that is due in the April stage.
It is up to the organization.
Go ahead.
It is up to the organization. We are not going to, we may make a funding decision that is different than what was applied, but we are empowering organizations to put in front of us what organizations need at this moment.
What if an organization serves people with disabilities, including blindness, but surveys have not specifically resulted in demographic information beyond age and disability? Gladys, who should take that one?
I don't know, Lisa, maybe. Lisa?
Yeah, so yes, I mean, we would be open to organizations, that are, working with people, with disabilities. But, the important thing is that you would still need the organization would still need to be mission aligned with ours in terms of, advancing health equity. So.
There's a similar question in chat about the connection between working with individuals with a disability and the link to health equity. So are we open to considering organizations that work with individuals with a disability?
I'll take this one. I will say a simple answer is absolutely.
Yes.
And to thank that person for bringing that population to our attention and the important aspects around health equity that represents. So thank you, and absolutely.
Thanks, Kendra. Will final funding decisions be all or nothing, or might partial funding of a project be offered by the board?
I'll answer that one. First of all, it's not a project. This is general operating support. As we all probably know, RMHF is a small and mighty foundation, right? We will do the best we can, ask for what you need for general operations, and we'll see what happens.
Let's see. There have been several questions about, will this be recorded or be shared? Our plan is to put the recording and the slides on our website, and we can send an email to those who have registered with the link to where they'll be on the website. Will there be an opportunity to apply for funding next year if an organization's not quite prepared to apply for funding this year?
Mark.
We are open for business. So you're always eligible to fill out an organizational profile. We'll be reviewing them. We will be sort of responding as we can. We need to get through this first cycle. We'll get through this first cycle in May before we launch our other programs. And then we anticipate that organizations will sort of enter our front door throughout the next several years.
Gladys, how do we define general operating budget? Does this include the overall budget or specifically non-programmatic expenses?
It is the total budget for the organization. It's not parsed out by projects. It is the total budget for the organization.
Okay. Regarding evaluation and measurement of the new strategy, what kind of reporting will successful applicants be expected to deliver?
Well, first of all, I think I'll answer that one. First of all, we will do an interim report. That's at the 1-year mark. And it's probably 4 questions. And we will have conversations with folks. We'll try not to take up much of your time. But again, it's 4 questions. What's changed in your staffing? What's changed in your mission, your plans, et cetera, et cetera. We want to understand what's happening in the community that might change the way you are doing your work or not change at all. But we also recognize that in a year's time, a lot can happen, but progress is oftentimes stymied in a year's time. So we will wait until the 2-year mark to get a more extensive report around your outcomes, what has happened, the things you've learned, the opportunities you've taken advantage of, your analysis of the challenges that you see. So it will be a longer, in the spirit of full disclosure, a longer reporting process. But in the interim, it will be very short and we will try not to take up much of your time. That's part of the learning that we've had over the last few years.
Are we taking into account the impact of the pandemic on services that have been offered over the past couple of years? Most data and services were stronger pre-COVID.
Absolutely. I'll answer that too. That's one of the challenges. And I think that as we review, as we get to the application stages, as we review them, we will understand better the impact of the pandemic on our communities. And we want to understand that, because I'm not sure we all do, and I'm not sure as a foundation we do. We have a sense of it, absolutely. But we want to hear from you about what it's meant with respect to the way you do your work and how you serve the folks that you serve.
Will there be opportunities to meet with RMHF representatives before organizational profiles are due or before applications are submitted? Mark, you want to take that one?
Sure. We're trying to create the most level playing field possible. So we're asking folks to complete the organizational profile just based on conversations with your own team and putting your best foot forward. And then our team will take really seriously everything that you put on paper to better understand your alignment, your mission alignment with us. But in this case, we really are asking folks to look deep inside yourself, answer the questions really succinctly and honestly, and then just to hold in trust that we will take the opportunity to learn about your work very seriously.
So there's a question about a participant who's logged into the grants portal. In addition to the profile, do we need to fill out the organization information page, or will the info in the profile supplant that info page? Lisa?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, only the organizational profile needs to be completed. If you're invited to apply, then the organization information page would need to be completed or updated. And I just want to make clear that these are two separate things. Yeah, the organization information page asks for demographic information and questions, around your fiscal year budget. So the organizational profile, which is what you need to complete now, is a separate thing that needs to be completed.
So I am interpreting this question. Can you explain social health equity, connecting individuals with disabilities to community and culture? Michael, I think this is related to the slide you shared about social determinants of health. And maybe some thoughts about how individuals with disability connecting community and culture can impact health equity. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd love for that individual that asked that question to further understand it within their own work. It sounds as if they work with that population. I think that's something that we'd be excited to hear from. I think when you see that there are gaps and see that a population is not being represented or heard or seen in a particular area of work, whether that be individuals experiencing physical disabilities within the social context, whether that's them engaging in decisions around policy and advocacy, whether that's engaging in decisions around land use decision-making, whether it's engaging around decisions in their own community around economic development or what have you. I think we want to know that, because what is that doing with their sense of belonging? And how does the sense of belonging tie towards their individual and community-wide health? And so I think we'll love to interpret that with them after they, go through the process of submitting an organizational profile and we hear more about them. and we can go from there. I hope that was a good answer, but that's a great question. It's just one that we love to be in conversation with when that application is submitted.
Thanks, Michael. A couple questions have come in asking for clarification around the 30% cap of overhead. Who wants to take that one?
I'll take it. The 30% cap is about the strength of the budget, the operational budget of an organization. No foundation likes to leave organizations in the lurch when it comes to joint operating support. Sometimes, based on the amount, the organization can feel a huge sucking sound. And I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's just how it is. And we are trying to support you as best we can. But if in 4 years, for example, something changes, you're no longer a grantee partner of Richmond World Health Foundation, we don't want our departure and our change in strategy, for example, to affect you in negative ways. And so we put a cap on this amount so that you can not experience that loss as deeply as you may if we do 50% of your budget, for example. It's no more than 30%. We think that that protects you in the long run.
Yeah, so just to clarify, that was 30% of annual operating budget in a year.
Yes.
Our funding cannot be greater than 30% of your annual operating budget.
Right.
Those are all of the questions I see that have come in via Q&A or via chat. If I accidentally missed yours, would you please copy and paste it in again so we make sure we get to it? And as I mentioned, these slides will be made available along with the recording on our website, and we will send an email to everyone who registered for this event with the link to where to find those materials on the website. If there are no further questions or comments, we will conclude. Mark, any closing thoughts?
Closing thought, we're just profoundly grateful that you spent this time with us. We're excited about the profiles that we'll receive, and every day we are grateful for everything that you do, and we look forward to being in stronger and healthier relationship as we move health and racial equity forward. Thanks so much.